today's the touch-up day, and yeah, exactly. The second time I've bought plants for the garden and like flowered plants, and because I don't know so much about when things bloom, and I think a lot of the stuff that I bought bloomed in June and maybe in July. And now it's more the later August, even some September blooms, and yeah, pretty magical. I just hope it's in well.
So you are learning as it goes?
I'm learning, and they are the teachers. I'm learning as it goes. "14 years of living in Berlin. Moved here in 2001. Maybe it is in there. Yeah, sometimes you have to dig to find the things that you've lost. Buried treasures. Okay, so then I'm gonna leave it in here. I came from New York. Was living in New York for 3 years after I graduated from school, from acting school, musical theater school. I wanted to be on Broadway. So yeah, I did a very rigorous program, and somehow didn't find what I was really looking for. And even though I had a great time in New York and made a lot of friends and did a lot of fun things, let's say. And then in 2000, I met Constanza Macras, actually. And we had a great time together for the New Year's. And then she came in 2001 to do a performance, this party performance called Dolce Vita. And we had a 4-hour party on September 9th and 10th, and in Joe's Pub, and it was the eve of September the 11th. And then they stayed for 2 weeks. We became very close, and then I was invited to come here afterwards because I couldn't stay. It was like it was a wrong place to be, and it told me that.
So what is what you found in Berlin that made you stay here?
The most important, I would say, possibility, like that I can do this. Really, that I can do this is like. I came, 2001, it was still, it's still a little late compared to a lot of other people, but here, because of all of the different kinds of spaces, because of, it was a bit unorganized still then and still fresh. There was so much, you could do anything you wanted. No money, you didn't even need money. And luckily, I experienced that, and luckily, it's stuck with me. So this possibility is still there, and then I can, dream a little bit bigger than a solo or something, something like that. Like, I think 2 years ago I went to a meeting here that a few of us were invited to, and the first thing they said to us was, "You're all mid-career artists," which was a shock to me that I was mid-career. And then they said, and as you know, in Berlin there's a roof for mid-career artists, so there's this glass ceiling, which was also a shock to me. But then once I heard it there was something, I understood something a little bit. But I think of course, there's a roof, there's this glass ceiling, and normally I would think it's as a result of institutions and all of this stuff, which is definitely a big part of it. But I have the feeling now, it's not a clear thought, and more, a new thought, that actually we create that ceiling. And we limit ourselves because we get so stuck in our bubble here, which is a beautiful bubble. And I choose to be in this bubble, and have chosen again to be in this bubble. But I think we have we've created a limited, I'm being general of course, but we've created a limited view on what's possible, or what is it to create something, or what we can even create, and that it is stuck in these very simple slow driver, stuck in these formats, traditional formats. I mean, of a piece or of a festival, or how a festival works and stuff like that. And it's a bit annoying.
But could be at the same time as like Peter Pan, not syndrome, that to preserve from becoming adult.
Yes.
Also, there is this glass ceiling in order to preserve certain idea of bubble, but also dilettantism that also might be valuable for. Do you think that this an unconscious self-preservation of non-professional ways of doing things?
Yeah, and at the same time habit, and getting stuck in a way of thinking and in a train of thought, and that our thoughts, we are kind of in a weird way guided to where that thought should end, be it in a performance in a theater or in a showing or in this and that, in the studio, in this pub. And there's a lot of other thoughts to have, a lot of other ways, shapes, lines to think in. And it's hard to do when you're stuck as a result of financial situations or spatial situations or time and all of that stuff. But I think we need to challenge ourselves. I need to challenge myself. Yeah, a lot of people just live here and don't work here, or just work here and don't really live. I don't know what blah 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 blah. But yeah, you have to give back to the city in order to receive something. And
here we are in the Impossible Forest.
And here we are, exactly, which is the whole, which was a big portion of this, like how to get people involved in something that first of all interests me, but was for a greater gift to the community and also to myself. I'm not going to be. I have to acknowledge that, of course, it's a research, it's a practice, it's a performance, all of that, and oops, and I didn't dig a deep enough hole.
So it can be that the Impossible Forest, in a way, if you allow me to do such a association, it's a little bit like a metaphor of the Berliner scene, that it needs to be nurtured and nourished, and somebody also taking care of it.
Absolutely.
So
and in a constant process, and I mean, then you can also say, I mean, this is also exposed, and maybe it's something we need to do as well, expose ourselves a little bit more. Maybe it's not the most daring thing, but to dare to share with another flow, another energy, another. Berlin is an impossible forest. Absolutely. Absolutely, only. But then we have to go even a step deeper and talk about what the first original intention of it was, which was to create a space that allows, a space of a different time. So let's say nature time, even though it's a construct, both space or time and nature. But that this is a space in this specific space that allows for people to slow down their thought, or to slow themselves down by physically walking and slowing down, to look at something on their way somewhere, or to really look at, really see something, really observe something. And this is really a practice that I'm interested in this seeing what's really there, and checking how it feels in this seeing, in this observation, and the thoughts that arise, rather than this quick check, which is everything, and it's how I am, absolutely. So this was for me a practice that I wanted to share with other people through a long process, which I didn't also understand it would be such a long, ongoing, never-ending process. But it's a garden, of course, but I'm a little, new to it. What do we do with that?
What's that?
It's the part of the root system.
It's not the tail of an animal.
I wish. What a beautiful animal that would be. I think I just don't know. We have to invest. There's an investment, or I mean, not a commercial for myself, but Social Muscle Club, for example, is also an investment in the community.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's a group of artists, friends actually, who I've known for a long time, 4 of us. Originally Till Rodmund and Jill Emerson, and then Rahel Savadelli and myself. And we're a bit fed up with exactly that, with the system, with the structures, with our inabilities. So being afraid to talk to somebody on the street, being afraid to make a phone call. I mean, very simple social things. And lack of connection. When we're here, the artists of the city who are revered. I mean, art is very important here, performance is very important here, but most of us don't know our neighbors, and most of us don't have exactly because we're leaving all the time, we don't really have a deep connection to the community, the everyday community. And so this is a project that we began to practice ourselves, and then to create practices in these events through artistic.
What kind of practices?
Like the most giving and receiving, unconditionally, and to exercise it, not to be good at it, but to exercise, to get better at it, to experience it, and so so we create these artistic events, these more social events with artistic inputs where we practice and exercise our social muscles. Yeah. The big weeds strangle the little tiny flowers, which is who are the weeds in Berlin?
Who are the weeds? If the garden is a metaphor for dance in Berlin, who are the weeds? Who do we want to pull out? Who do we want to remove from Berlin? Come for that video.
Yeah, there are ways to create more space for everybody. You make your garden a little bit bigger. You plant the right things next to each other, and things also support each other. Maybe there needs to be more interaction be amongst the older generation and the younger generation, in whatever way that is, in inviting people. These big companies, they can invite people to come and look, random people, the school, something. I don't think it happens. Even our language of how we talk about having a practice, an artistic practice, or what is your practice? And these things are also very specifically Berlin in a weird way. But we don't know that. I didn't know it until recently. I mean, not that I have a practice, I have methods of working and things like this, but this language starts to come, and suddenly we are slave to that language, which then makes us this kind of talker about art, which is limited, which becomes one language, homogeneous, and which creates the same outcomes. This is what I was trying to say earlier. Like, our working methods create the same outcomes. If you start from the same place, you're going to end in the same place. And this is something that I think we as a community and as individuals need to challenge. So as a group, for the community, as individuals, for our own work. Being or gardening, let's say, makes one so approachable, I found, that everybody passes by and has something to say or share or ask, or even then through talking, then works in the garden with me like total strangers, and this is an amazing thing to experience. That actually we can experiment every year. It can be something different every year in terms of how much care or time we want to put into it, as well or not, if it needs like a little bit of a break. But also, the garden tells you maybe one year it just needs to be totally overgrown, and you don't take care of it at all, and then what happens, and what new can come out of it, what more can we learn from it. This doesn't mean you don't continue in the observation, or that the students here, if they're really interested, if they would want to take over for some time. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and really, but work that's totally pleasurable. I think there's nothing that I've done with this garden that hasn't been pleasurable, except for raising money, which I have a big problem with. Asking the community for money, even though in this case it was even symbolically a part of it, part of the project. People can't physically help, then maybe, you know, 10 euro here, 10 euro there. That, of course, it's money that helps to create the garden, but it's also a form of participation. I hope that people approach me, and I hope that people have ideas for the garden, or, you know, artistically, or more garden related, more actually what it is on the surface. Sorry.
If we will need to interview the garden itself, or the forest itself, the plants, the flowers,
yeah.
What kind of language do we need to use to make an interview with the forest?
Well, I mean, we can literally do it if you want.
Sure.
If you have questions for the garden, if you want to do it, we can talk to the garden.
Let's do it.
Okay, they need to be a little bit more yes or no questions.
Okay.
But we can do it.
Yes, if actually the drug dealers brought you here.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. Did the drug dealers bring you here? Did they plant your seeds? Yes. But let's just ask to do a double check. Were you a part of, because it could be birds, seeds, wind, or the drug dealers, or other people. So were you in the soil before? No. Did the birds bring you?
Yeah.
Yes, actually birds, it says. But they could have also spread it. And the wind, was it the wind? So it was birds? No, it was the drug dealers. It was the drug dealers. Drug dealers brought the cannabis into the garden. It's kind of clear.